Her lips trembled, her hand cold in mine. With the faintest breath, my mother-in-law whispered a secret that shattered everything I thought I knew about her family. I didn't realize it yet, but that single moment, that final whisper, would burn her children's lives to ashes and leave me standing at the center of a war I never asked for. If you've ever been underestimated, betrayed by family, or wished for karma to finally strike the people who deserve it, hit that like button right now. Subscribe, because today's story is a ride through betrayal, heartbreak, and one of the most shocking courtroom reveals you'll ever hear. My name is Kristen, and if someone had told me a year ago that I'd be holding my mother-in-law's hand as she passed away, I would have laughed in their face. She wasn't cruel to me, not exactly, but her children, the people who should have loved her most, made sure I always felt like an outsider. They saw me as nothing more than the wife, a hanger-on who didn't belong at their table. At family gatherings, I was the one passed the cold dishes last. My jokes were met with polite silence, my ideas dismissed. They never said it outright, but I knew they thought I wasn't good enough. And yet, when her time came, when her health failed, I was the only one there. Her children had excuses. Busy with work. The kids have soccer. Endless lists of why they couldn't visit. Weeks turned into months. By the time she was confined to her hospital bed, their visits had dwindled to phone calls, short, distracted, obligatory. But me? I couldn't leave her alone. At first, it was duty. My husband worked long hours, and someone had to be there. But over time, it became more. In those quiet afternoons, spoon-feeding her soup, brushing her hair back from her face, reading her old romance novels aloud, I realized something: she trusted me. She needed me. I still remember the night everything changed. The room smelled faintly of antiseptic and fading flowers. The beeping monitor was steady, but her breaths were shallow, each one a mountain she had to climb. I held her hand, whispering things I didn't even believe myself: "You're strong. You'll get through this. We'll have tea again soon." That's when she gripped my fingers with a surprising strength. Her eyes, clouded but sharp in that instant, locked on mine. "Kristen," she rasped. Promise me you'll protect it." I leaned closer. "Protect what?" Her lips trembled. Her hand shook as she tried to lift it, pointing weakly toward the nightstand. "The key, it's yours now." "They can't, they'll destroy each other. Promise me." And then, just like that, she was gone. The monitor flatlined. My voice cracked as I screamed for the nurse. But all I could hear, louder than the alarms, louder than the rushing footsteps, were her last words: "The key, they'll destroy each other." I didn't sleep that night. The key. The nightstand. I waited until the chaos settled, the doctors, the paperwork, the white sheets drawn over her frail body. Then, when the hallway was quiet, I opened the drawer. Inside was a single envelope, yellowed at the edges, with my name written in her fragile handwriting. Beneath it lay a small brass key, heavy and cold in my palm. My heart pounded. My name? Why me? I tore the envelope open, and what I read made my blood run cold. The envelope shook in my hands. My eyes darted back and forth across the faded ink, my breath catching on every word. "Kristen, if you are reading this, then my time has passed. I chose you, not my children, to hold this truth because you have been the only one to show me kindness without asking for something in return. I know they will come for it. I know they will fight. The key you hold unlocks everything they have lied to themselves about. Be careful. They will hate you for what I've done, but I believe you have the strength to stand tall. Protect it. Protect yourself. And remember, truth always finds the light. No explanation. No details. Just the key unlocks everything." My palms were slick with sweat. What truth? What lies? I stared at the brass key. It wasn't a normal house key. Too small for a door. Maybe for a box, a safe, something meant to hide secrets, not guard rooms. And her words kept replaying in my head: "They'll destroy each other." I slipped the letter and key into my purse just as footsteps thundered in the hallway. The door opened, my sister-in-law, Paula, her perfume flooding the room like poison. "Oh good, you're here," she said flatly, not even looking at her mother's lifeless body. She tossed her handbag onto the chair. "The nurse called me. Guess it's finally over." My throat tightened. "Finally over?" That was her reaction? "Where's the will?" Paula asked immediately, her voice sharp. "She must have left something. Mom wouldn't just, not think of us." I swallowed hard. She just passed an hour ago. Shouldn't we?" But she cut me off with a wave of her manicured hand. "Kristen, don't be dramatic. These things matter. Do you have it?" My chest burned. Already. Not even a tear. Not even a goodbye. Just the will. I shook my head. "No. I don't know where it is." Her eyes narrowed. Suspicion flickered across her face, like she could smell the letter hidden in my purse. "Well, Dad had one, so she must too." "I'll call Martin," she muttered, scrolling on her phone. That was how it started, the circling. Like vultures. The children who couldn't be bothered to hold their mother's hand now swooping in for scraps. The next few days were a blur of arrangements, phone calls, and fake condolences. The funeral was quick, sterile, and half-hearted. Paula gave a stiff speech about her beloved mother, while my brother-in-law, Greg, checked his watch the whole time. Not once did either of them break down or whisper an "I love you." And yet, afterward, when we gathered at her house, their energy changed. Suddenly, they cared. Suddenly, every drawer mattered, every photo album, every closet. "This china set was promised to me," Paula snapped, yanking plates out of the cabinet. "Dad bought that TV, so technically it's mine," Greg muttered, unplugging cords like a thief. I stood there in the middle of it, holding my husband's hand, my heart sinking deeper with every word. He stayed quiet, his jaw tight, as though he was ashamed of them but too afraid to speak. And in my purse, the secret weighed heavier and heavier. The brass key. The letter. I wanted to tell him. God, I wanted to. But every time I looked at Paula's narrowed eyes, or Greg's greedy hands, I remembered her warning, they'll destroy each other. So I kept silent. The storm broke a week later. The lawyer called a family meeting. We all sat around the polished oak table in his office, Paula with her arms folded like a queen, Greg tapping impatient fingers, my husband hunched, trying to disappear. I sat straight, my pulse racing. The lawyer cleared his throat. "Your mother left a will. But, there are stipulations." Paula leaned forward like a wolf scenting blood. "Stipulations?" "Yes," the lawyer said, adjusting his glasses. "Her estate, including the house, savings, and remaining assets, are to be distributed only after the safe deposit box at First National Bank is opened. Inside, she claims, is the true record of ownership and her final instructions." My blood froze. The key. I could feel its shape pressing through the fabric of my purse. "What box?" Greg barked. "I've never heard of that." The lawyer shrugged. She was very clear. The safe deposit box must be opened in the presence of all her children. I shifted in my chair. My mouth was dry. If I revealed the key now, they would tear me apart. "Then where's the key?" Paula demanded. "She didn't give me anything." The lawyer shook his head. "I wasn't provided one. Without it, the bank will require a court order to drill it open. That will take weeks." Greg cursed under his breath. Paula slammed her hands on the table. Unbelievable. She couldn't just leave things simple. Typical. I stayed silent, the letter echoing in my mind. "She chose you, they will hate you for it." That night, when we were finally alone, I pulled the letter from my purse and showed my husband. His eyes widened, his breath catching. "She trusted you," he whispered. "She chose me," I said, my voice trembling. Not them. He reached for my hand, but I could see the storm in his eyes. Because he knew, as well as I did, when they found out, the war would begin. And it did. The next morning, Paula showed up at my doorstep with Greg in tow. Her eyes flicked to my purse on the counter like a hawk. "You have it, don't you?" she hissed. I tried to play dumb. "Have what?" Her smile was venom. "The key. Mom always did like you more." Pathetic, really. "But she probably gave you something." "Don't bother lying, we'll find it." Greg stepped closer, his bulk blocking the doorway. "Hand it over, Kristen. Or you'll regret it." My knees went weak. They weren't grieving children anymore. They were predators. And I realized, my mother-in-law was right. This key wasn't just metal. It was a fuse. And the explosion was only beginning. The day at the bank felt like standing on the edge of a cliff. The safe deposit room was cold, lined with gray metal boxes stacked like coffins. The air smelled faintly of paper and steel. My husband's hand squeezed mine, steadying me, but I could feel Paula's glare boring holes into my skin. Greg stood with arms crossed, bouncing one leg in impatience. The banker slid the long box across the table and placed it in front of us. "You'll need the key," he said. All eyes turned to me. I reached slowly into my purse, fingers brushing against the brass key that had haunted my sleep for weeks. My throat was tight, my palms damp. But I remembered her last words, she trusted me. "Protect it." With shaking hands, I inserted the key. A soft click echoed like a gunshot. The lid opened. Inside lay a thick stack of documents, sealed envelopes, and a leather-bound notebook. On top, in bold handwriting, was a note, to my children, and to Kristen. Paula snatched it before anyone else could. She tore it open, her eyes scanning greedily, then widening in shock. This isn't right," she stammered. Greg ripped the papers from her hand. His face flushed red as he read. "What the hell is this?" He slammed the page onto the table so hard the banker flinched. I leaned forward. The words burned into me. "I, Eleanor, declare that the ownership of my estate is not to be divided equally among my children. Instead, the majority shall be transferred to Kristen. My reasoning is simple: when I was abandoned, when I was sick, when I needed love, Kristen was the one by my side. My children turned away from me. I will not reward neglect with wealth. Let the record show, Kristen shall inherit the house, the savings, and the trust fund. My children shall receive a symbolic sum of $1 each, to remind them of what they gave me in return, nothing." Paula gasped like she'd been punched. Greg's mouth twisted into a snarl. "She's lying." Paula shrieked. "This has to be forged. Kristen put her up to this." My heart pounded. I didn't. But Greg's fist slammed the table. "We'll see you in court. You're not stealing what's ours." The weeks that followed were a nightmare. Everywhere I went, whispers followed. At family dinners, cousins eyed me like I was a thief. Old neighbors gave me cold stares in the grocery store. Paula spread rumors that I had manipulated her mother, that I'd tricked her in her final days. But the worst was my husband, torn in two. I saw it in his eyes every night. He wanted to defend me, but the voices of his siblings poisoned him. He never said I was guilty, but he never said I was innocent either. And then the lawsuit arrived. A thick envelope slapped onto our porch, Greg and Paula contesting the will. Accusing me of coercion, undue influence, manipulation. Words that cut like knives. We sat in the lawyer's office again, but this time the air was thick with venom. Paula leaned across the table, her voice dripping with malice. "You won't win. The judge will see right through you. You're nothing but a parasite." Greg added, "We'll make sure you walk away with nothing. Not a dime. And when the truth comes out, even he pointed at my husband, will realize what kind of snake he married." My lawyer placed a hand on my shoulder, grounding me. "Let them talk. The truth is on our side. But inside, I was shaking. The trial was set for 2 months later. 2 months of silence, of icy dinners, of family members who once smiled now refusing to meet my eyes. 2 months of Paula's smug texts, Greg's threats, and sleepless nights replaying Eleanor's voice in my head, protect it. Protect yourself. And yet, in the quiet hours, when I sat at the kitchen table with Eleanor's leather-bound notebook, I began to understand why she had chosen me. It wasn't just bitterness. It wasn't revenge. It was proof. Every page of that notebook told the story, dates, notes, letters never sent. Painful entries of birthdays missed, doctor's appointments skipped, moments she begged for company but was left alone. And then, her gratitude for me. For sitting with her. For reading. For being there. It was more than a will. It was her testimony. Her final defense. And when I closed the notebook, one thought settled heavy in my chest. I wouldn't just be defending myself in court. I would be defending her voice. The courtroom was colder than I expected. Not in temperature, but in atmosphere, icy, suffocating, a place where family ties came to die. Paula strutted in wearing a sharp navy suit, her heels clicking like gunshots. Greg followed, smug, his tie perfectly knotted, his expression that of a man certain of victory. Their lawyer carried a briefcase so stuffed it seemed ready to burst. I sat at the opposite table, my hands trembling beneath the wood. My lawyer whispered, "Stay calm. Let them hang themselves." The judge entered. Court is now in session. Paula was first on the stand. My mother was vulnerable, she said, her voice dripping with fake sorrow. Kristen preyed on her. She isolated her, convinced her we didn't care. She manipulated her into rewriting the will. She dabbed her eyes with a tissue. Theatrical. Fake. Not a single tear stained the paper. Then Greg took his turn. His voice thundered with righteous anger. My sister and I loved our mother. Kristen twisted her mind in her weakest moments. It's disgusting. We won't let a stranger steal what's rightfully ours. Each word stabbed deeper. Stranger. Parasite. Manipulator. My stomach churned. The jury shifted uncomfortably, glancing at me, at Paula, at Greg. They were buying it, or at least questioning me. Then it was my turn. I rose, knees weak but spirit burning. I told them about the nights I spent reading aloud when no one else showed. The birthdays she spent alone. The doctor's appointments she begged her children to attend, only to be met with silence. She wasn't manipulated, I said, my voice cracking. She was abandoned. And in her final months, I was the only one there. That's not my opinion, it's hers. She left her words behind. I reached into the evidence folder and held up the leather-bound notebook. Gasps rippled through the room. The judge leaned forward. Proceed. Page after page, my lawyer read aloud Eleanor's own words. Today was Paula's birthday. She never came to see me. Not even a phone call. Greg promised to take me to my doctor. He never showed. Kristen left work early to drive me instead. I've never known such kindness from someone who owed me nothing. My own children owe me everything, and yet give nothing. Every entry was a dagger, sharp, undeniable. Paula's face drained of color, Greg's jaw tightened, his fists clenching. And then the final entry. If my children contest my will, let this book be read. Let them hear my voice one last time. My choice is not cruel. It is justice. The courtroom was silent. Not even a shuffle, not even a cough. Just the weight of her words filling the air. The judge cleared his throat. The will is clear. The testimony is consistent. The court sees no evidence of coercion. The estate belongs to Kristen. The gavel struck. Final. Absolute. Paula erupted. You witch. You poisoned her against us. Greg slammed his hand on the table. This isn't over. You'll regret this. But their words felt hollow. Their power had been ripped away, not by me, but by their own mother's truth. For the first time in months, I exhaled. Not because I'd won money. Not because of the house, or the savings. But because her voice had been heard. Eleanor's last words had echoed, and finally, justice answered back. In the weeks after the verdict, the house was mine, officially, legally, undeniably mine. Yet stepping inside for the first time felt surreal. The place carried both sorrow and vindication. The walls still whispered Eleanor's presence, but for once, they didn't feel heavy. They felt protective. Paula and Greg, however, weren't done. They turned to pettiness. Late-night calls filled with venom. Social media posts accusing me of being a gold digger. Even whispers through extended family, painting me as a manipulator who tricked a dying woman. But here's the thing about lies, they crumble under the weight of truth. Because Eleanor hadn't left just the notebook and the will. She'd left receipts. Literal receipts, carefully stored, medical bills she paid alone, checks she wrote for her children that were never repaid, credit card statements showing years of neglected responsibility. She hadn't just spoken in her notebook. She had documented everything. So, instead of hiding in shame, I did something bold. At the family gathering 2 months later, I invited everyone, cousins, uncles, family friends. Even Paula and Greg. They arrived with smug grins, ready to spin their narrative. But when everyone settled, I placed Eleanor's notebook and receipts on the table. This, I said calmly, is Eleanor's truth. You've heard their side. Now hear hers. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't scream. I just read. Entry after entry. Page after page. Faces shifted. Gasps filled the room. People who once avoided me now stared at Paula and Greg with open disgust. The ones who believed their lies suddenly saw the truth. Paula's face went pale. Greg muttered curses under his breath. But it was too late, the family they'd tried to weaponize against me now turned their backs on them. And in that moment, I felt something deeper than victory. It wasn't about the money. It wasn't even about the house. It was about Eleanor. She hadn't been silenced. She hadn't been forgotten. Her words had risen above the lies, louder than Paula's shrieks and Greg's threats. She had chosen me to carry them, and I had done exactly that. That night, as I sat on the porch of Eleanor's house, my house, I thought about her final whisper. Protect it, protect yourself. I realized she hadn't just meant the key or the will. She meant her truth. Her memory. The love she felt in her final days when everyone else abandoned her. Her children wanted wealth. I ended up with something far greater, dignity, legacy, and the satisfaction of watching karma do its work in real time. And maybe that's the real revenge. Not screaming, not fighting, not tearing them down with the same cruelty they used. But simply standing tall while the truth burns them alive. Because in the end, Eleanor was right. The truth always finds the light. If this story gave you chills, smash that like button right now. And tell me in the comments, have you ever seen karma catch up with someone who deserved it? I'd love to hear your stories. And of course, don't forget to subscribe, because we've got even more jaw-dropping revenge stories coming your way. Until next time, remember, the truth always finds the light.